The next Bank of Canada decision could financially hit millions of Canadians, and almost nobody sees it coming. So 2 weeks ago, the US inflation report shocked the markets across the countries. Inflation, it came in hotter than expected, and oil exploded over $100 a barrel. And now traders are betting that inflation could surge all the way back to nearly 5%. And here's why that matters to you. So when America gets inflation, or when America sneezes, Canada follows and gets sick. And if inflation keeps climbing, the Bank of Canada may be forced to raise rates again right when over 1 million Canadians are about to renew their mortgage, which means like some families could suddenly see their payment jump by $300, $400, even $500 a month. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what's happening behind the scenes right now, a quick market update on mortgage rates, why lenders could reprice rates very fast, and the one mortgage move that smart homeowners are making before everyone else panics. Let's go. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, the US released its latest inflation report, and this just wasn't another boring economic update. This was kind of the report that changes mortgage markets. So American inflation came in at 3.8% year over year, which is pretty big. That's the hottest inflation reading that they've seen since 2023. But here's what really scared the markets. Core inflation, it jumped to 2.8%. Got to caffeinate. Now, if you don't follow economics closely, let me simplify what that means. Core inflation is the inflation that sticks around. It strips out volatile things like food, energy, and then it tells us where inflation is spreading deeper into the economy. And right now it is. Restaurants are getting more expensive. Hotels, have you tried to get a hotel in Vancouver? It's $500 a night. Haircuts, labor, services, everything, it's starting to creep higher again. And that's exactly why markets reacted so aggressively, because inflation, it's no longer looking like a temporary oil problem. It's starting to look structural, embedded. Even the Chicago Fed president, Austin Goolsbee, I think his name is, it called the report disappointing. That's central banker language for this is becoming a problem, like we're on high alert. Now, you might be thinking, Scott, why do I care about American inflation if I live in Canada? Because Canadian inflation and US inflation, they move almost identically. Historically, the correlation between the two sits around less than 1%, so 0.96%, meaning when American inflation rises, Canada usually follows right behind it. And traders are now betting US inflation could hit 4.8% by the end of this year. If that happens, Canada could easily be looking at inflation north of 4% again. And that's where mortgage holders need to start paying attention, because if inflation spikes, it's going to drive interest rates right behind it. Now, let's talk about why inflation is heating back up today. Oil, mainly. The WTI crude oil just surged above $100 a barrel. And markets, they're freaking out because geopolitical tensions are escalating again. The negotiations in Iran are breaking down daily, and global supply of oil concerns are rising. That's facts. And wherever or whenever oil spikes, inflation usually follows, because oil touches everything. Transportation, shipping, groceries, manufacturing, travel, gas prices, everything. And this creates a massive problem for the Bank of Canada, because right now the BOC, they want to hold rates steady. And at their last meeting, they kept the overnight rate at 2.25%. And they're basically having their fingers crossed that this oil shock fades away on its own before their next meeting. But if inflation keeps spreading beyond oil, they may lose that option completely. And the BOC Governor, Tiff Macklem, practically admitted at the last BOC meeting, he said if energy prices remain elevated and inflation becomes more generalized, they may need to tighten policy again. The translation is, we hope we don't have to hike, but we absolutely will if inflation keeps spreading. And right now, markets still think the BOC probably won't hike in June, but markets, they change overnight. If inflation surprises higher again next month, that pricing flips immediately. So let me explain what this means for mortgage rates. Right now, fixed mortgage rates for prime borrowers are sitting roughly anywhere between 3.95 up to 4.79%. Variable rates, they're closer to like the high threes, low fours, but fixed and variable rate mortgages, they move differently. Variable rates, they follow the BOC overnight rate directly, and fixed rates follow bond yields. And bond yields are already climbing because investors are scared and they're pricing in higher future inflation. So even before the Bank of Canada hikes, fixed rates can rise first. And that's the part most people miss. If inflation keeps surprising to the upside through June, Canadian bond yields are definitely going to be going higher, which means fixed mortgage rates most definitely will follow suit. High fours, maybe even crest the 5%. And if the Bank of Canada eventually hikes on top of that, variable rate moves higher too, and the cost of funds go up. So now you've got pressure on both sides of the mortgage market. And this matters because Canada, they're heading into one of the biggest mortgage renewal waves we've ever seen. And they've all been talking about it on everything. But by the end of 2026, roughly 1/3 of Canadian mortgage holders will have to renew. And most of them locked in when rates were around 2%, maybe 2.5, maybe in the ones. But now they're renewing into rates almost double what they had before. Even in the best case scenario where rates simply stay where they are today, many Canadians are still facing payment increases of somewhere around 20%, sometimes more. That alone is painful. But if inflation stays hot and rates move even higher, that's where things get spicy. And a lot of families could suddenly be looking at another $300 to $400 per month on renewal. And for many households, that's the difference between building wealth and drowning financially. So, what should you actually do? First, if you're renewing in the next 6 to 12 months, this is not the time to procrastinate. You should already be reviewing your options because rate holds are valuable in uncertain markets like this. So if rates move higher next month, the lenders are going to reprice overnight and those lower rates disappear altogether. Second, if cash flow stability matters to you, there's a very strong argument for locking in now. Not because 3.9% is some amazing historical rate, but because certainty has value, especially in volatile environments like we're in right now. So if you lock into a fixed payment today, you know exactly what your housing cost looks like for the next 3 to 5 years. You can budget, you can plan, you can build some equity here. That matters, especially when or if inflation and geopolitics are this unstable and could bubble over. Now, could rates eventually fall later? Probably. But hoping rates fall, it's not a strategy. Protecting your downside, that's the strategy, because if rates stay flat, you're fine. If rates rise, you're protected. And if rates fall later, you still own your home. You're still paying down principal and you still avoided the stress of uncertainty. That's like some manageable risk in my opinion. That's smart mortgage strategy for sure. And remember, mortgages, they're not just debt products, they're wealth building tools. The structure of your mortgage, it matters more than people ever realize. One wrong move on a renewal can cost a family tens of thousands of dollars over time. That's why these decisions matter so much right now. So here's my advice. If you're renewing soon, reach out to me this week, not next month, not after the next inflation report, now. Because once lenders start repricing, you don't get to go backwards. If you want help reviewing your options, comparing lenders, or locking in a rate hold before the next BOC meeting, go to chatwithscott.ca or the link down below here, and I'll walk you through your situation and I'll build a mortgage strategy that actually protects your long-term financial future. And if you found this breakdown valuable, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because every Monday, Thursday, Saturday, I break down what's really happening in the mortgage market, and I try and strip out the fluff, strip out the clickbait. So when you finish with this video, go watch last week's video where I break down how much income is actually needed to buy in Vancouver. I'll see you there.